Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Today I'm going over an article by WMUR News, which is the main news affiliate for the state of New Hampshire, and in it, it was an interview by WMUR's political director Adam Sexton, and he does an interview with former Senator Scott Brown. And amidst all this news comes a potential for Scott Brown running for the 2026 New Hampshire Senate race. So the article begins by saying former U.S. Senator Scott Brown is among a number of Republicans in New Hampshire urging their Washington counterparts to go back to the drawing board and cut spending. Of course, by the time this video comes out, this will likely be old news, as this is not going to be coming out until probably around the 2nd of January. But for the sake of this video, that's not really the main important part here. This is just Brown talking about the current situation happening in the House. The most important part of the article for us today is where Brown says he's considering a possible run for the U.S. Senate in 2026. Brown said, "Looking at our federal delegation, they're kind of in lockstep with those failed policies," Brown said. "They covered for Biden, they really didn't support the closed border, the immigration, and they're not doing the things that I think are important for New Hampshire. Is there another run? Yeah, I think so, and I'm obviously looking at it." Incumbent three-term U.S. Senator Jeanne Shaheen, who defeated Brown in a head-to-head matchup back in 2014, has not yet announced whether or not she'll run for re-election, though she has filed paperwork to do so if she does choose. And we have a quote also from the Democratic Party chairman in New Hampshire, who said last week Scott Brown said he wanted to be an ambassador on the other side of the world. Today he says his backup plan is yet another campaign for the U.S. Senate. One thing we know for sure, Jeanne Shaheen always works her heart out for New Hampshire. Brown said he's not set a timeline for making a decision, saying, quote, "I'm looking forward to the holidays. I coach girls varsity basketball. We've got a great team. I'm going to do my due diligence. I think like everybody who's considering running, but we have an opportunity to really bring some real change." So this is very, very interesting and talks about the 2026 U.S. Senate election in New Hampshire. And in this will be incumbent three-term Democratic Senator Jeanne Shaheen. She won back in 2020 by big numbers, so I'm about to show you in just a little bit. She is reportedly considering running for a potential fourth term. She has not yet stated explicitly if she will do so, but she has filed the paperwork to run for this term. One thing I do want to point out here is the article on Wikipedia is actually not correct. It says publicly expressed interest. Governor Chris Sununu, the outgoing governor, has actually said the opposite in recent interviews, saying he's not going to run for this race. So I do not expect him to run for this. Right now, the only publicly expressed interest candidate on the Republican side is Scott Brown, who you may remember this name if you've been following politics for a while. He was the former U.S. ambassador to New Zealand and Samoa under President Donald Trump, and he briefly served as a senator from Massachusetts between 2010 and 2013, winning the special election against Martha Coakley, and then in 2009, and then serving through 2012 when he was defeated in a close election against Elizabeth Warren. He then ran in New Hampshire for the Senate seat in 2014 against Jeanne Shaheen and lost a very close race, which I'll be going over briefly. In my view right now, aside from maybe Chris Sununu running, I think Scott Brown presents likely the best opportunity for the Republicans in the state of New Hampshire at trying to turn this seat red. That being said, I still don't think it's going to be a very easy situation, as Shaheen has been elected statewide 3 times now and is probably the most formidable Democrat in the entire state of New Hampshire when it comes to politics. For the sake of this race, I do just want to take a look back at 2020 in the Senate map, where Jeanne Shaheen did defeat her Republican rival, Corky Messner, by 56.6% to 41%. Now, Corky Messner was not exactly a very strong Republican recruit. A lot of Republicans didn't want to run against Shaheen in 2020 because they felt she was a very formidable candidate and the chances of winning this seat were not very good. And that being said, Jeanne Shaheen did win every single county in the state of New Hampshire, including some more Republican counties or very close counties like Rockingham County, like toss-up Hillsborough County, like Carroll County, Belknap County, Coas County, Sullivan County. These areas that, when we look back at 2024, Donald Trump won Rockingham County in 2024, won Sullivan County, won Belknap, won Carroll, won Coas. And when we look at 2020, Jeanne Shaheen won them all. So 2020, certainly Jeanne Shaheen scared off a lot of top Republican challengers. Looking like 2026 won't be that way. The last time there was a competitive race in New Hampshire in the Senate race between Jeanne Shaheen and a Republican challenger was in 2014, where Jeanne Shaheen and Scott Brown faced off against each other. And this is interesting because this race, I didn't realize this, by the time 2026 rolls around, this race would have been 12 years ago. So it certainly has been a while since Shaheen and Brown faced off, and still is a very close race. Shaheen got 51.6%, Brown got 48.4%, and it was a win of about 16,000 votes for Shaheen over Scott Brown. So certainly a very close race. And when you look at the countywide map of New Hampshire, it gets the makings of a similar to 2024, where it was a close race. We saw Scott Brown win Rockingham County. This is of the three largest counties in the state: Rockingham, Hillsborough, and Merrimack. Rockingham is the most Republican of the three. And Scott Brown did win here 54.7% to 45.3%. However, it does need to be mentioned that 2014, was a very good Republican year for the Republicans. It was after Obama won the 2012 election. It was supposed to be a strong Republican midterm year, which it did end up being. 2026 will be, on history, a strong Democratic midterm year. Of course, Senate elections, as we saw in 2018 and even in 2022, don't always exactly break the same way as the House may go, so that could change things. But we saw Rockingham County go red by about 9 points for Brown over Shaheen. Hillsborough County, a toss-up county now, was 51.2 to 48.8 for Brown over Shaheen. So Brown actually won this county. And I saw in recent talks about Hillsborough County, it accurately predicted 51% to 48% for Harris over Trump in Hillsborough, pretty much aligned with the percentages of the statewide vote, both in 2024. And if you want to look at 2020, it did the same thing, where again, Biden got 52.7% statewide, Trump got 45.4%, and Hillsborough County was 53% for Biden, 45.3% for Trump. If you round up on Biden's end, that would get to 53%, and if you round down on Trump's end, it would get to 45%. So Hillsborough County, 2 elections in a row at the presidential level, has accurately predicted the statewide total. So what does this mean for 2014? Or if Scott Brown, based on the current state composition, was able to replicate this map where he wins Rockingham County and Hillsborough County, would Scott Brown maybe win this time around? Well, maybe, because he did win here by about 3,300 votes in Hillsborough County. And when you look at 2024, in a presidential year, Kamala Harris won here by about 6,000 votes, or 6,700 votes. So it's possible, but if Brown would need to also keep the gains, in addition to winning Hillsborough County and flipping these votes, that Trump was able to do in Belknap, Sullivan, and Carroll County. But at least looking at the 2014 map, it was a very close competitive election. And for 2026, it does offer the Republicans the best shot, really, in the state of New Hampshire. Now, that being said, of course, I think it's premature to say that right now, Jeanne Shaheen would not start out as the favorite. The question is, would I have her start out as a likely over 5% or under 5%? If it is Jeanne Shaheen versus Scott Brown, I honestly do think this race becomes lean Democratic for me. Yes, Scott Brown has not been in elected politics since technically 2012, but I think a lot of people will underestimate how much of a political force he is, especially in the New England area. And yes, I'm sure Democrats will hit Scott Brown on being a carpetbagger, but he also has been living in the state of New Hampshire now since that election for 12 years. So, I mean, they can try and use that same carpetbagger line, but it's really not the same as being a Republican senator in Massachusetts and running in New Hampshire 2 years later. He's lived in New Hampshire for 12 years now, so I'm not really sure it'll have the same weight that it once did. But that being said, Jeanne Shaheen is still a political force in New Hampshire, and I think she would have to start out as the favorite. But let's say, hypothetically, if 2026 completely disregarded the historical trends, say President Trump is doing an amazing job as president, is New Hampshire winnable? Could Scott Brown flip this race and win by under 1%? Is this even possible? Well, at least we've seen statewide, it is possible for Republicans to win in New Hampshire statewide. And you may be saying, well, what do I mean by this? We just saw Donald Trump lose. Well, let's take a look back at the governor's races in 2024. Well, in the governor's side of things, Republican Kelly Ayotte, who's considered more of a moderate Republican, just won against her Democratic opponent 54% to 44%. So there actually is recent precedent of Republicans winning in New Hampshire statewide. Now, of course, Senate races are different than governor's races. Typically, they're more in line with the state ID, or the party ID of the state, rather than a governor's race. But Kelly Ayotte did just provide a roadmap for how Republicans can win. And when you look at how she did it, she won Rockingham County, and Hillsborough County, and Merrimack County, and Belknap, and Carroll, and Colossus, and Sullivan, including doing better in Stratford, in Grafton, and in Cheshire. Scott Brown is not going up against Joyce Craig. Most likely, he'll be going up against Jeanne Shaheen. So the 2014 map, I think is going to be more likely for Scott Brown against Jeanne Shaheen than the Kelly Ayotte map. But I don't think it's outside the realm of possibility to, at very least, see New Hampshire getting very competitive going into 2026. I don't think it's really the right thing to say that Scott Brown, I think, will for sure win this race by under 1 point. But I don't think anyone's saying that Jeanne Shaheen would beat Scott Brown by over 15% or anything, or even for sure winning over 5 against Scott Brown. I don't think that's necessarily a safe bet either. I think Scott Brown's the best candidate the Republicans have for 2026 in New Hampshire, and I think he presents probably the likeliest chance at Republicans winning a Senate race in New Hampshire in quite a long time. Because New Hampshire Republicans have not been able to do too well at the presidential level despite a closer race in 2024. They have not won the state since 2000. And at the Senate level, they have not had a Republican senator since Kelly Ayotte lost her seat very narrowly in 2016. Scott Brown does present the Republicans the best chance in New Hampshire in 2026. And even still, I do think this race starts out as an uphill battle with Jeanne Shaheen favored to win, probably by about that 3 to 4% margin once again. But at very least, this is going to be something very interesting to watch because Scott Brown, if he does run against Jeanne Shaheen, is probably the best candidate Republicans have had in New Hampshire going up against a Democratic senator in a very, very long time. So that's going to do it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Why don't you like the video and leave a comment below telling me what you think about this. And if you think I'm correct in that I think Senator Scott Brown would be a very formidable challenger to Jeanne Shaheen, or do you think maybe I'm totally wrong and maybe Jeanne Shaheen was in a much stronger position than I think? Leave a comment below telling me what you think. In the meantime, thank you so much for watching. Hope to see you in a future video. That will do it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please remember to give it a like. And if you really liked it, please remember to click the subscribe button. And make sure you turn post notifications on so you always get notified when I post a new video. That way you never miss one. Also, please remember to share this video with your friends and family if you really like the video. And remember to stay tuned because I'll be posting at least one video every single day leading up until Election Day. So I'd really appreciate it if you keep coming back and watching those videos. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in a future video.